since you have no specific questions, I'll get into where the real work is, right? Because at some point, it's necessary to allow yourself to bring into play the idea of thy will be done. And the idea of everything is already determined. It's important to bring that in. Why? Because it gives you some relief. Do you know what I mean? It allows you to stop carrying the burden of responsibility about everything, you know? It allows you to experience some relief, but at the same time that's the case, it's kind of like there's two wings on the bird. One is the freedom and the clarity and the relief of the understanding that the source is determining everything all the time. Thy will be done. Right? To have that be one wing of the bird in which there is freedom and a relief that you can, let go. You can surrender. You can give it to God. You can allow the source to be the source, and stop misunderstanding that you're the source. If you really look at it, that's not a good idea. It's not a good idea to consider yourself the source, because, well, obviously, first of all, it's just not true. And then secondly, if you consider yourself to be something that you're not, you have to pretend. If you consider yourself to be something that you're not, you have to maintain a pretense. You have to act as if you are the source and attempt to be the source. And since you aren't the source and you don't have the power and you don't have the clarity and you don't have the wisdom that the source does, I can't say this without speaking French. You're just going to be a fuck up. That's what you're going to be. You can't help it. You can't be anything but that because you don't have the vision to see what's going on. And so you're moving around blindly in the universe, and yet that's a setup. It's a setup because by moving around blindly in the universe and by making mistakes and by paying the consequences and by suffering, right? That's the means by which you'll have a motivation to consider, is there something else? That's the means by which you will be receptive when the opportunity comes along for you to hear the truth. You see what I'm saying? You'll be receptive to it because you are suffering and you don't want to suffer. And that's a built-in part. That's the way it's supposed to go. Yeah. And it's not, it's actually beyond being one with the source, because to be one with the source still implies that there was ever two. You see what I'm saying? So it's not being one with the source, it's the simple recognition of the truth that all there is consciousness, that the source is all there is. So that the idea that you have about, who you are as a person, it doesn't go anywhere, it's still here, but now it's in its place. It's in its place. It's not, you don't consider that to be the truth of who you are. They talk about these things in terms of taking your seat. If you were to look at it in terms of the throne, the seat of the kingdom is where the king sits, right? But as an analogy, the way most people's lives are is that which sits in the throne is your mind, not the self. That which runs the show is your mind. That's where the thinking happens, right? And because you consider yourself to be the thinker, what happens in your mind is you who consider yourself to be the thinker is thinking thoughts, and those thoughts are determining your behavior, right? So what sits on the throne in the kingdom you live in is your mind, not you. You're a subject to the king, not the king. Even though you're really the king, the mind sits in the throne and runs the show. Right? When you wake up, you realize it's time for you to take your seat. It's time for you to take the throne. It's time for you to be the source of consciousness. And when you're being the source of consciousness while in the world as a person and a body, right? It's not that you are saying that you're God. You are God, but you're God in the form that you have been manifest in order to express whatever it is that the source is having you express. So that's the thy will be done piece, right? So the thy will be done piece allows for freedom, but at the same time, this is the paradox. It allows for freedom, but at the same time, you have to play the role of the actor. At the same time, you have to play the role of that you were the doer in the world, right? You have to play you have to be in the script. You have to play. You have to be in the drama. You have to be in the world as the actor, as the person acting, right? But that's not in conflict with the truth, because the truth is that you understand that that's a manifestation of the source. And in order for it to work, the source had to forget that it's the source, or it wouldn't work. If you were born in a human body and knew from the very beginning that you were God, or that you were the source, the gig's up, the game's over already. There's no game. In order for there to be a game, there has to be something that doesn't exist that you're trying to get to. In order to be a game, there has to be the possibility of winning and losing, right? Or there's no game. Well, you can't lose if you're God. You got to have losing. So you have to be in the world, and you have to be in the illusion and in the dream, and identify yourself as a body, identify yourself as a person. Then you can play the game of being an actor and doing things and so forth and so on. But the heaviness of it, right, is mitigated by the understanding that you have that thy will be done, that the source is doing it all along, and it's all, the film is in the can. The film's already in the can. Everything that's going to happen is already completely predetermined, right? But you see, that's one side of it, but that side of it, that wing won't fly the bird. There has to be the balance of it, the other side of it, right? That you're a person and you're living in time and space, and you do have free will and you do have a choice, right? If the two of them were operating at the same time, right, it's perfect balance. It's perfect balance, because you can be an abandon and play the role you're in this story, in this drama, right? And at the same time know that there's nothing at stake. Well, you don't have any free will, but you have to act as if you do. You have to be in the illusion. You have to be in the movie. It's kind of like, in reality you have free will, but we're making a movie here, and in this movie you don't have free will. So in this movie you have to really act as though you don't have free will, and everything in the movie is going to operate consistent with that. Right? That everybody in the movie is an actor, and they're a doer, and they're going to do things, and you're going to do things, right? And that, so the game of playing the game of being a human being in the world is the movie that we're doing here, right? But in the end, the movie's been made. It's in the can already, right? But you're going through the script, and you're playing your role in the movie. At the same time, there's nothing at stake. It's a movie. Nothing's really happening. That's literally true, by the way. Nothing is really happening. It's all being manifest in consciousness through the magic, right, of the source relegating its position to you as a seemingly separate self that's seeing the world through these eyes. The source has relegated its reality to that, so that you can be in the world, so that the source can experience life as a human being in the world. It's, the thing about it is, people get into all kinds of mental gymnastics and all kinds of philosophical conundrums to try and figure it all out, right? But the thing about it is that as far as I can tell, what's to figure out? What's to figure? There's nothing hidden about this. It is what it is. It's just that what it is is so radical and unbelievable that people say, no, it can't be that. Can't just be what it is. There's got to be something behind all this. What's the meaning of it all? You know, what's this mean? What's really happening here? You know, and so the philosophers, you know, generate all these ideas about what's happening. But what about the obvious reality? You know, why does God do what God does, right? Because God can do anything. Why not? Right? If you were God and you wanted to have some fun, you would create the world like it is, so you could have some fun. Because there's nothing going on. It's not really happening. It's what they call in the spiritual traditions Layla. Layla, it means the play of consciousness. Yeah, it's the play of consciousness. You know, this whole dream, this whole movie, just like a real, see, and it's interesting, just like a real movie, right? If you and I went to the movies and the only thing we saw in the movies was everything is beautiful, everything is love, everybody's happy, everybody's cooperating, everything is just hunky-dory all the time. That's what all the movies were, right? Nobody would go to that movie after a while. You know what I mean? It's boring, right? So you go to the movies because the unacceptable happens there, right? The things you're terrified of, you can watch in the movies, and it's exciting because it's not happening, right? But that's the way it really is. It isn't happening here either. This is the movie, you know. This is the movie. Nothing's happening. How can something be happening if the you that you think it's happening to doesn't exist? How can something be happening if the you think what's happening is happening to doesn't exist? Just like a movie. How could something really be happening to the actor in the movie playing the role when the actor in the movie is playing the role of somebody that doesn't really exist? So how could what's happening in the movie be really happening to them when they don't exist? It's the same thing. What's happening in your life is really not happening to you because there is no you. So if you just get that equation clear, right, and you subtract the you think is the you that everything is happening to, what's left? What's happening? And what's happening is nothing other than the play of consciousness. It's just consciousness constantly. You have to understand something. There are no real nouns. There's no real nouns. All there is verbs. All there is what's happening, and it's always changing, right? There is nothing that's a noun. There is no person, place, or thing. There's no such thing as a person, place, or thing. That's an illusion, right? But just like somebody who is going to run toward the mirage to get water, right? Just like somebody's going to run to the mirage to get water because you're thirsty and you're afraid you're going to die, you will continue to chase after the illusions in life as if they're real, like money. The absence of time does not mean eternity, or does not the endlessness of space does not, the absence of space does not mean infinity. No, those would be an extreme expansion of time and space, yeah. But something that you have to get clear about is when we say there's no time, it means there's no time. It doesn't mean that there's more time. It doesn't mean that there's an endless amount of time. It means that there's no time. There's just no time. Time doesn't exist. It's not real. It's not there. There's no space. These things are very hard for the mind to understand and digest because we're so totally conditioned to operate in these dimensions of time and space. So if I say there's no time, not time is an expanded eternity, we use that word because it's something that's conceptual that we can kind of comprehend. You can't comprehend no time. It's incomprehensible. No time is incomprehensible. Just like you can't comprehend the truth about who you are because it's beyond concepts. But, and here's the real deal, here's the real bottom line. You can't comprehend reality because it's incomprehensible. You can't comprehend who you are because you're incomprehensible. You can't comprehend time or space because what's real is incomprehensible, and time and space is put in place of all that. However, although you can't comprehend any of that, and this is the thing that the meditation is all about in terms of transforming and experiencing the transcendental wisdom. While you can't comprehend any of that, you are that. You are that. You are the whole thing. You are time, you are no time. You are space, you are no space. You are mind, you are no mind. You are body, you are no body. You're all of it. That's non-duality. You are this. This is you. You are all of it. So when you go through all of the machinations that we go through in terms of understanding things, and we go through the practices in order to realize the experience of being that what we are, the whole thing is what you are. The whole thing is what you are. You know, including thy will be done and including that you have free will. See, thy will be done is one extreme, you have free will is the other extreme. They both exist. They both exist. There is no conflict between those two things. The operation of them together allows for things to be as they are. That's all. And you can relax. You can enjoy the idea that you have free will, and you can enjoy the idea that you can do things and you can cause things. I mean, that's why we're here, isn't it? Yeah, because you want to be able to use this to cause something, right? To make something happen, right? So you can enjoy the experience of that and at the same time experience the freedom and relief of knowing that there's nothing you can do. Both things are true at the same time. You've only been living with and used to the idea of one of those two things, that you do have free will. When I was a little kid, my mother used to take me to amusement rides in the local park where they had these little kiddie rides, right? And they had these little cars, right, that were on a track, and they were, right? And when you're a little kid, you don't know. You get in that thing and you think you're steering. You're turning the wheel, right? And you think you're steering the car, but you're not steering anything. You're not steering. That's the same thing as we're experiencing in life. You know that you brought up believing that you're steering this thing called your life, right? So you get up in the morning and start steering, right? Right? But it's the same thing as the little thing when I was a kid. You could take your hands off the wheel. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You can't stop steering because you've been so totally conditioned, to steer your life, But with these understandings and practices, even when you're steering, you can smile because you can take your hands off the wheel. It doesn't matter. You were never in the driver's seat, You were always imagining you were in the driver's seat, trying to drive the car, but you weren't really in the driver's seat. That's why it's so disturbing. That's why the car keeps having accidents, because you keep trying to drive a car that you're not steering. And if there's an accident, it was by design. If there's an accident, it was a planned accident to make the experience exciting. No, but you're not excited by it, and you're not happy to have the accident because you think you're driving and you think you messed up. No. It's all by design. The whole thing is by design. This is why when you go through your life, especially as you get older, if you can have these understandings and if you're practicing enough that these understandings are available to you all the time, when the shit hits the fan, right, you can relate to it like, oh, everything's predestined. This is the will of God. Oh, this is interesting. God decided that I'm going to have cancer. That's interesting. So what's that like? Yeah.
So, but it also seems like we have some control over things, like if I have an exam and I don't study, I'm obviously not going to do well versus preparing for it, or if I have to do a talk and don't prepare. You know what I mean? So I feel like there's obviously doesn't mean it's going to go well. In the end, I don't have that control, but isn't there, some little aspect of control of our lives?
No. You answered your own question when you started speaking. You said, it seems. It does seem. It does seem. And in the game we're playing, what seems to be so is so because we agree that it is. So it is so. Therefore, if you violate the law, we'll put you in jail because you're the source.
But then you can just walk around life and like not do anything, not pay my taxes, not do this, and there's going to be consequences.
Well, wait a minute. Okay, try it. Then you can walk around in life and do whatever you want. You don't have to follow the rules. You don't have to pay taxes. Okay, give it a try.
Well, you're going to get penalized.
Yeah, well, give it a try. The reason I'm saying give it a try is because if you really did give it a try and you came back here next week, you would tell me it didn't work. You can't. Try to do what you just suggested is possible. Try to get up in the morning and say, I have free will, and therefore I'm choosing to stay in bed today and just have fun and relax and watch TV. Just do what I feel like doing and eat plenty of ice cream. Try it. You won't be able to do it, will you? No, if you really tell the truth and you look at it, you won't be able to do it, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, if you just substitute the couch.
But what I'm saying is the illusion of free will is a real illusion. Right? And we're all operating with the understanding and agreement that that's the case, right? So in order to play this game, you got to play that way. You got to play that way. And you can't help playing that way because you've been conditioned to play that way. And if you try not to play that way, your mind will go crazy. Your mind will be saying, you can't stay in bed. What are you, crazy? You got bills to pay. So that's God too, you see. It's all God. It's all God. That's the thing about it that makes it seem a certain way. It seems like I have free wills, and God has it seem like you have free will. It's all God. God has it seem like you have free will. You're here, so when you talk about predestination, the mind gets a little crazy about it because it's like, I don't want to not be in control, right? I don't want to accept the idea I'm not in control, right? But you see, even the fact, so you could say, for example, that one of the ways we could talk about no free will is to say that everything you do is a function of your conditioning, right? Can't come from anywhere else. It's a function of your conditioning. Therefore, you don't have any choice. You have to do what your conditioning says you have to do, because your conditioning determines the thoughts that you have, and the thoughts that you have determining what you do. So that's the story, right? There's nothing that you can do about that. You just have to. But even with that being the case, here you sit learning about how to change your conditioning, aren't you? Yeah. So that's God's will too. It's God's will for you to experience the possibility of transformation. It's God's will for you to experience the possibility of transcendence and transcendent wisdom, right? That's not excluded. That's all part of it, right? That's why the Jews said that they were the chosen ones, right? You're the chosen ones. You've been baptized. The baptism is you've been introduced to the truth, right? And once you're introduced to the truth, something is set in motion by that. The seed that exists within you that might be called your Buddha nature, right, has started to get watered by these teachings and started to get watered by these practices. And so so sprouts start to come up. It starts to grow. It starts to blossom. And the blossoming of this seed is enlightenment. The fulfillment of the possibility that lived in the seed, right, expresses itself in your realization of the truth, right, and the freedom that provides and the liberation that provides. And so that's the flower blossomed. Not all the flowers blossom. Some of the seeds stay dormant, right? And so, you have had the blessing of having the seed blossom, and now it's in the process of expanding in the direction of full blossoming into the flower that's there, right? And there are two things that are operating at the same time. One is the will of God that's determining the whole thing, and the other is the idea you have that you can do something about it, and the two of them together have the flower blossom. Everybody is awareness. Everybody is already what they are. Everything is already what it is. All that this is about is noticing. That's about it. You're just noticing. Have a good day. See you all next time. You don't have to put a mask on. You've been wearing a mask all along.